Welcome on everybody, this is Sprues and Studs, and we are in the middle of our Necron review block, and I am so excited to finally be able to get my hands on these lovely Xenos action figures. As I've alluded to, these guys are my second favorite Xenos faction. We have taken a look at the Overlord, which is obviously the leader of the Necron army, but what leader is actually going to be complete without the faithful troops that the leader leads? Well, so in this video, we are going to be taking a look at the Necron Immortals that are going to be fulfilling that troop role that the Overlord oversees. So there is nothing to do except get down to the review.
The march of death continues with the Immortals. Unsealing the tomb and lifting the lid of the sarcophagus.
So anyways, let's just dive right on in with these Immortals and take a look at what is going on with them. So, in typical Sprues and Studs fashion, we'll do a very in-depth, top-down kind of look on this action figure. So, we're going to be looking at the head first, and the head actually follows the same exact patterning as the Overlord. So, you've got this center area that's white, and then the rest of the skeletal skull is a bronzish type color. The eyes are screened very, very nicely. It's got glowy green beady eyes that have been heavily outlined by this black color, which really brings out the light or lifelessness of this action figure right here. And then you get to see some heavy shading where the mouth area is. And then we're going to take a look at the top of this action figure, which is pretty much the shoulder area. And you get to see the same characteristic look that you saw on the Overlord. So what I mean by that is it looks like there is some sort of like darker color shading on the edges of this armor plating that's here, or you can call it probably the carapace. And it then gradually lightens up to a lighter color in the middle, which is actually a very cool technique that is used, and it's very much appreciated, rather than just a complete same kind of gold color the whole entire way throughout. So we're going to take a look at the arms, and the arms actually follow the same motif. You got the darker outline on the ends of the little armor panels, and then it lightens up. Looks like there is some sort of highlighting over here with the elbow joint as well as the forearm area. So we're going to take a look at the chest area of this Immortal, and the chest area actually is a lot darker. So the middle areas actually look like the outer areas on this carapace of the armor. And then you have the prominent Necron symbol that's right in the middle. And then progressing on, you see the guts of the action figure, which is a bunch of tubing and hoses, and the hoses actually have been highlighted a nice lighter color, which again brings out a little bit more life to this action figure. So we're going to quickly progress down to this area down here. So you've got the spinal column, again, has been highlighted the same thing as basically like this is like the intestines. And then finally, we're going to progress down and take a look at the leg area itself. The leg area is actually no different from the rest of the areas on this action figure, with the dark paint up top and lightens up in the middle. Let's flip this around and take a look at the spinal column. The spinal column is actually really cool. It really does remind me of a skeleton. And look at all the vertebrae right here, which is really interesting looking. And attached to this spinal column right here is a bunch of flexible tubing. So you've got two separate tubings here. This may actually look like it's three, but it's actually two. So you've got these green wires that are running down from the vertebra right here, and then a big black hose that's in the middle. Let's take a look at this gigantic Gauss blaster. And it is a fairly imposing weapon with a bunch of stuff that really jumps out at me. First of all is this bayonet, and this is actually pretty wicked looking. You have the muzzle of this Gauss blaster too that has some wicked spikes at the end of it. And then in the middle, you get to see some light green painting where the energy is emanating from this gigantic energy weapon. And then moving on over here, you get to see a very, very cool tubing where you have these darker green and it lightens up to a well, lighter green, which really mimics how an energy weapon is supposed to look like. So we're going to put this guy down, and I'm going to assume that this second guy is going to look exactly the same. And from cursory glance, he looks completely the same as well. One thing that I'm going to point out is that, well, I'll be honest with you, this one does not have any battle damage whatsoever that I would like to see on a Necron, because these guys have been around for a millennia. The Overlord has plenty of battle damage with like a bunch of dings and scrapes and stuff, but this is noticeably absent on this action figure. So I don't know if like this is a purposeful thing, but I would have liked to see some dings and scrapes on this thing. Let's just take a look at the articulation, and I don't know, to be honest, if there is that much articulation with the head. So you get to see some back and forth motion, as you can see right here. There is very little up and down motion. There is a certain degree of limitation. Let's just take a look at the movement of the arms. So I believe through the shoulder socket, it's 360 degrees of motion. It is. There is lateral movement back and forth from this joint here. So there is a lot of fluidity that you can get at least within this joint. The elbow area, you're not able to move past this section, but you can bend it in a little bit further than 90 degrees. There is 360 degree movement here about the forearm area. And then with the wrist area, you can also move this 360. However, there really isn't that much pivoting motion that you can find here. So it appears that there is a ball and socket joint from the torso area to this vertebra region. You can pivot this thing around 360 degrees, as I am showing you here about that axis. And there's also another ball and socket joint here from the end of the vertebra to the pelvic region. And this is also able to be pivoted 360 degrees, like you can see right here. So there's going to be a T-shaped ball joint right here where the pelvis is. You can rotate this around 360 degrees. There is no stopping of the motion. And then there is, again, some lateral movement back and forth with this Necron. With the knee joint, you are not able to bend it forward, but you are able to bend it back a little bit more than 90 degrees right here. There is 360 degree motion as well about the knee joint. And then the foot joint here, you can bend this up and then you can bend this back like this. But there is no side-to-side motion that is possible with this. So now there's nothing to do except arm this action figure. So he grips the Gauss blaster right here, like so. And then he stabilizes it with this area, the handle, right here. And then voila, you have the typical look of a Necron Immortal holding this massive Gauss blaster. The Necron Immortals, the literal pillar of the Necron armies. So, what did you guys think of these guys based on my review? Is it something that you're going to be passing on? Is it something that you're going to be getting? Is there something that you're going to be getting because you want to basically have your Space Marines completely trounce and pose all over this guy? Maybe. So anyways, what do I actually think of these Necrons? I think they're actually really cool. Again, I'm a little bit biased because the Necrons are actually probably my second favorite Xenos army, and my first favorite is the Eldar. But anyways, that's digressing a little bit. I feel that JoyToy did capture the whole entire look and ethos of the Necrons very well with these action figures. I really like how much detail that you can find on these Gauss blasters. They are absolutely phenomenal to look at and very, very large and wicked looking. So one thing I'm going to focus in on is obviously the gigantic bayonet that's on the end of this Gauss blaster. Looks very intimidating and looks like it can skewer a regular human being. And then the second thing that I'm going to be commenting on is that JoyToy did a fantastic job of capturing the energy that is on these weapons. So you get to see the green that is basically on the barrel of this Gauss blaster, and then with all the extra tubings and stuff, it really brings this weapon to life. Do I recommend getting these things? Obviously, if you want to have an army filler or somebody to oppose your Space Marines, then yeah, go ahead and get them. They're actually really cool looking, and would fulfill that role very, very nicely. So this is Sprues and Studs. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in to my reviews. We are about halfway done with our Necron review block. We still have our Death Mark to look at. We have a JoyToy versus McFarlane comparison coming up too, so look forward to that. If you love the in-depth detail that I pour into these action figures, please consider subscribing to the channel, as it helps out very, very much. And as usual, I'll see you all in the next one.